MongoDB is non-relational database that help you to build application faster and easier. So if you are building application that does not even require any relations, then you can go for non-SQL or non-relational database, which MongoDB is one of them and is the most popular one. So in today's video, we are going to learn how we can build an API in ASP.NET Core using MongoDB. After that, we are going to use React to connect to our front end so that we'll be able to visualize whatever we are doing in the backend. So if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe and share this content with others. And if you have any questions, suggestion, you can drop that one in the comment section. And let's get started. So to get started, this is what I have a demo here, which is this is what we are going to build today. So it's a simple API which we are performing some cloud functionality, and this is the React version of it. This is the front end. This is what we are going to do at the end of the day when we have our API working. So you can see that there is a product here. You can create a new product, you can delete, you can edit. So first of all, I can view one product like this, and then it will give you a details of that product. And this is cloud functionality, so we are not just putting in actual real product, we are just putting in test and price and everything in there. So in here I can edit this, and then when I come here I can see that product, so product, and then I can then update this. So when you update this, the title here update to product, and then you can also go ahead. So when you come back here, you can go ahead and create a new product. So here I can say new product. So let's give it a new product like this, and say that this is a new product for us to test and see if everything is working. So if everything is working, so this is basically what we want. And then we're going to set the price here, and the price here we are going to make it 30, and then we hit that one, and then you can see that we then have the new product here. We can also go ahead and then view this right now, and then we can edit the price here to, let's say, 30. Let's edit this price to 30, and then when I update now, the price is now 30. So this is React, and we are going to build an API with ASP.NET Core with MongoDB, and then at the end of the day we get this functionality in our front end. So to get started, I'm going to use Visual Studio to create our backend, and we use Visual Studio Code to work on our front end, which is something that I basically love to use Visual Studio for all the ASP.NET Core thing, but you can use Visual Studio Code for both of them. So let's go ahead and create our project. So here we are going to use a template from Visual Studio, which is going to be a controller based web API. So let's go ahead and select ASP.NET Core web API, and then let's go and then place it where we want to place it. So I want to place it here, and then I have this MongoDB and React, and then let's go to the server side. I want to put it here, and then the name I want to give it to it is server API. So let's give it a server API, or it's a MongoDB API. So let's say MongoDB product. So product, let's make it product API. So MongoDB product API, and then let's go ahead, and then we are using .NET 9. So, and then we have to make sure that controller is also checked, because we want to do controller based right here. So that is one thing. So we go ahead and say that we want to create this project. So Visual Studio is going to then bootstrap the project for us right here. So I have the project here. We can bring it here right now. So basically this is the project that we have, and then we can go to our program.cs here. So this is basically what we have in here. This is a default API which Visual Studio basically always give it to us. And one thing that we are going to use to make our API calls or to test our API is that we are going to use Scalar. So Scalar will be something we are going to use to make our API call. If you have been watching my video, you know recently I've been using Scalar to make API calls or to test my API. So basically that is it. So first thing that we need to do is that we are going to go here and say we want to manage NuGet right here. So we will come here, and then what we want to do is that we want to go ahead and install some packages. So the package that we want to install, the first one is Scalar. So we first of all need Scalar. So we are going to go ahead and then install Scalar right here. So we have Scalar installed, and then the next one we need is MongoDB driver, which we are going to use. So we're going to see the MongoDB driver here, and that is the driver that can help us to connect to MongoDB. So let's go and then download that one. So official driver for .NET, right? So make sure to download, or to install that one right here. So I'm going to install that one. So now this is the only two package that we need for this project. We need Scalar, and the second thing is that we need the MongoDB driver. So then what we are going to do is that we are going to map in Scalar. So we are going to see that API right here, that's map. So we see that map map Scalar, right? So map Scalar API reference, this is what we need. So we save this, and this is going to help us to basically see our API or to test our API using Scalar. So for Scalar, this is what you need. That is one thing I love about Scalar. You don't need to do a lot of configuration just to call this interface, and everything will be configured for you. So the next thing that we need to do, I want to go here. This is specifically for my personal development. So here we can see that I want to set this to true. So when I run my application, I want the browser to launch right automatically for me. And the next thing we want to do here is that we want to do something like launch URL like this. And what we want to do is that we want to go ahead and say Scalar. So we want to see that Scalar /v1. So this is where we want our application to run. So let's say if you are using Swagger, you can say that Swagger /index.html, right? Then it will, you will see your API interfaces there, or your API everything is there. So we are going to see that like this, and then we have Scalar. So we are going to see everything in Scalar /v1. So this is what I love to do mostly. So the next thing that we want to do is go ahead and then run our application and see if everything works. So we are expecting to see our default weather forecast here in the browser. Okay, so this is Scalar, and then you can see that we have our default weather forecast API showing up right here. So we can then make a request to see if everything works, and you can see we are getting a response here in the weather forecast, which is very nice. So the next thing for us to do right now is that we need to go ahead and start creating the project, right? So let's go back to Visual Studio right here, and what we want to do is that, so the first thing that we need to do in Visual Studio is to go ahead and create our project structure, which is the folders and how we are going to do things right here. So I'm going to first go here and create one a folder right here, and I'm going to call it data. So we are going to do something. We are going to go to MongoDB interface, where we are going to create our project and configure everything. We get our database name and everything here. So we are going to do something like DB contest, where we used SQL Server to do, and it's going to be very amazing, right? Okay, so that is one thing that we want to do. And then let's close this. So let's close all the tabs right now, and then we have our data in here. The second one I'm going to create is domain. So I'm going to create domain right here, domain folder. So let's go ahead and add this folder right here called domain. So the domain basically is going to hold our models and the construct. The construct is simple, some kind of our DTOs, right? And that was what we are going to use to transfer objects, or to how we can transfer data. So we are going to go in to this, and we are going to create another folder where we are going to give it a name called models. So this is basically model, right? And then we have construct, and we are doing this in the domain folder. So we are creating another subfolders in there. So this is also going to be construct. Okay, good. So we have our construct, and we are going to also enable calls and everything. So we need to also bring in extension folder, where we are going to create extension method. So now we have these folders here, which is first we have our controller, we have our data, and then we have our domain. Inside the domain we have constructs and we have models, and then the ultimate one that we want to create is service. So let's go ahead and create service. So we are going to create service like this. So service 2 is going to hold our services and how we are going to create everything. So now let's go in there, and then in the model let's create our first class, which is going to represent. So we are going to give this a name product. So this is basically going to hold our model, or in a way we can say that this is going to hold our entities that we are going to use to connect to the MongoDB database. So to do that, we are going to say product, and then we have this here. So the product name, don't worry, we didn't add Mongo in there, so we should have added as Mongo. Yeah, don't worry about the name. So the first thing that we want to do is that when you are creating entity or you are creating models in MongoDB environment, is different from the SQL Server one, or when we are using the SQL Server right now. So this is MongoDB store data in object format, so it's unstructured, like what we used to do, like Cosmos DB. I already have a video here in this YouTube channel where we built a full API using Cosmos DB, which is also non-relational database on Microsoft Azure. So you can check that video out and also get to understand how NoSQL or how no relational database works. So the first thing is that we need to bring in ID. So if it is SQL Server, what we do is that we say that public hint or GUI or something like that ID, and then we are free to go. But here it's not like that, because the MongoDB store everything in JSON format. It's not going to be tables where everything is here, ID is here. This is going to be JSON format. So when we are creating our model, we have to make sure that we are converting everything to JSON, so that when it goes to MongoDB, it will be easy to get in. So there is a properties, or we can call it annotations, where we need to use when we are creating models, so that MongoDB will understand what we are trying to do, and it will treat that property like that. So when we have ID here, it's ID, but we want to make it JSON. So the first thing that we need to tell MongoDB is that we are going to say this ID right here is going to be bson ID, right? So bson ID, or you can say bson, right? So we are going to say this is some kind of bson ID. So we close this. So this ID here, we are saying that this is supposed to be kind of bson ID. So let's make sure it's an array. So this is going to be bison, right? Bison ID, which is coming from MongoDB bison. So this is the property we installed, right? So we have already installed this MongoDB driver, so it will come from there for us. And then the next thing that we want to do is that bison representation. We also want to do something like that. So we see that bison right here, representation, we have this, and then inside that we can go ahead and see that the bison, we don't want the AI too. So we are saying that bison right here type. So the bison type, we want to make it, let's see, bison type. Okay, its type is supposed to be typed like this, right? Dot object ID. So we are getting, it's not coming in. So let's make sure to save what we have right now, and you see that this is going to be bison, right? And you see type, bison type, and we don't want to use this, so bison type like this. And then when we go ahead, we're going to see that, let's see, bring this one, try to import this. And then what we are going to do is that here we are going to say that object ID type. So this is basically telling MongoDB that this public hint ID here is an ID we want to use, and then it's supposed to be bison ID, because how MongoDB store IDs are different from how SQL Server store ID. So now everything that we are going to do is going to do that. So now what, this is an ID. Let's move to properties. So the normal properties that we want to do here when we launch the React version of this API we are building, you will see that we have a product name. So to do that, we also have what we call the bison element, which we need to use here, and then we specify what we want to say that this is basically a name. So this, under this we have a name, and we are going to say that public something like this. So this is also telling MongoDB that this property is a name, right? So treat it as a name, so something like that. So we can do the same for the other ones, which we basically have description. So we can copy this one right here, and then we can come down like this, and then what we are going to do is that we're going to see that this is kind of description. So description, description. So this is description, and then when we come down like this, we can see that public hint, and then the last one that we are going to have here is going to be price. So price, and then you can add more properties as you follow this tutorial. You can add more properties if you want, but I just want to make it very simple so that we can move fast. So price, and then we have public right here, and we see that double like this, and then we're going to see that this is basically going to be optional, and you see that price, and then we have our getters and setters coming in right now. So this is basically it. So this is basically our property that we have in here, and we have configured this. So this is what we are going to store, or we are going to keep in our MongoDB database. So this is basically the model. Now that we have we have our model, everything created, the next thing that we want to do is go straight forward and create our construct. So in our construct, there is one thing that we need to do here in the construct, because we first need to create a class called MongoDB settings. And this MongoDB settings, what it's going to do is that we basically want to bring in something like our connection URI, and then we are going to bring something like database name and correction name. So in MongoDB, when you create your MongoDB project and then you create your cluster and everything, you are going to have a correction database, and inside the database we have corrections. So if it is SQL Server, we can see that we have a table, or we have a database, we have tables in there. So the correction here is now representing like a table, so we can have a lot of correction in a certain database. It's the same as what we did with Cosmos DB, so you can go back and refer to that video. You understand what we are trying to say here. The big thing is that you have a database, and then inside the database you have correction. So you can have a product correction which store product names. We can have user correction that store user information, but at the end of the day all of them is sitting in one database. So that is what thing that we want to clarify here. So we want to create this class, and this class is going to represent some kind of stuff that we want to do. So we first want to see that we want to have public some kind of, is going to be a string, and they say that connection, let's give it a name of connection connection URI, right? So something like this. Let's check the spelling, if everything is clear. So connection URI, and then we want to see that this is going to null or something like that. And then we are making a mistake here, so let's do this, and then let's take this. So the next thing that we want to do is that we're going to have public string like this. So we have public string like this, and we say database name. So the database name that we want to get, and then we do the same for it. It's going to null like this, and then we see something like this. And then the next thing that we want to do is the correction name. So we're going to see that public string right here. We say correction right here, correction name, and then we do the same for it. So basically this is what we need to do, and then we are going to put this in our app.settings, and then app.setting.json, and then we are going to put everything in app settings.json, and then in there we can then do what you want to do, connect to MongoDB database. So the next thing that we need to create is the construct, and then you know that the construct is basically details that we use to represent how our application should look like. And this is also going to use those kind of JSON property name, and then it's going to use different. So I've already prepared all the what we need to create. So this is very simple how to create these things. So I'm going to show you right here. We have these DTOs, which is create DTO. So if the create DTO is like what we did in the model. What we have here is that we are making it required. So if you refuse to provide this one, you are going to get a message that name is required. And then this is a JSON property name, because as I said, MongoDB deal with JSON. So we have to make sure that this one too is JSON. Even though it's a DTO, this is what is going to represent. This is the data we want the user to enter when they want to create a product, but we want to turn everything into a JSON. So we are telling ASP.NET Core that this is JSON. So that is it, and this is coming from the ASP.NET Core. This is not coming from MongoDB as a whole. It's the model one that we use the based on property and element and everything representation to create the model, but this is basically DTO. So we have this, and it's very simple. It's just when you want to create a product, you provide name, your description, the price, like what we did in the model. So in the model we have all of these things in here. So that is one thing I have created in here. So create, we have update DTO, and then we have a product DTO which return all the product information, and then delete product. So this is basically it, and this is the way to go with it, and that is very easy. So we have our DTO, we have our model working, and the next thing we want to do is that we want to go straight to MongoDB. So this is our initial scaler. So what we need to do is that we're going to create a product in MongoDB. So we're going to say that MongoDB Atlas, right? So that is what we're going to use. You can use MongoDB Compass and everything, but that is not what we are interested in right now. We are going to use the MongoDB Atlas right here. So you can go ahead and log in. It's very easy to log in. So I'm going to go ahead right now and logged in with my account. You can log in with your GitHub or your Google account. So the Atlas here, I'm going to say sign in, and then you can see here you can log in with which account that you feel comfortable with. So I'm going to log in with Google so that we can continue. So I've logged in with my Google account. So when you log in, if you have projects, you can find all of them here. So you can see I created some kind of demo .NET kind of product, right? So we have all of these things once here, but we are going to create a new project. So you can create a lot of projects here. So if you want to create projects in MongoDB, it's very easy. You can view all the projects you have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight to the point and say that I want to create a new project for this thing that we are going to do, so that you can also follow along and create projects in MongoDB Atlas. So this is the first thing that I want to go and do. So I'm going to say that MongoDB, right? .NET React. So let's do it like that. And then one thing is that let's give it a proper name. So let's say .NET is going to be capital letter and then MongoDB here. So this is telling us that this project is MongoDB, .NET and React. And then we can give it some kind of this. Let's see if but I mean, let's put everything together. It's nothing. I prefer that way. So this is the project we want to create. We are not going to add any tags in right now. We just want to go ahead and create our project. So we go for next. So here you need to verify the project owner. So I'll be the project owner, which is my email here. If you logged in with your Google account or GitHub, you will see that you are the owner. So I'm the owner. I'm going to create that. So I'm going to hit create project, and you can see that we are now trying to create a project. So it's trying to create a project for us, and then you can see now the project is created. So when you create a project in MongoDB, that is not all. You need to create in what we call cluster. So choose the cluster help you, because under the hood MongoDB use cloud provided services like Azure, AWS for its services. So in the process of creating your cluster, you will decide which cloud services that you want to use or you are interested in. So in this case, when we are creating our cluster, we choose the cloud provider we want, and then we can select the free version that we want. So that is one thing about MongoDB. After creating your project, you go ahead and create your cluster. So let's go and say that we want to create in some kind of our first cluster here, and this is beautiful thing. So to deploy your cluster, you choose what you want to do. So you can choose some kind of this, and you can choose serverless. But what we are much focused on is that this is a test project, so we go in for the free one, and you can see that we get 512 megabyte storage. The RAM is shared, and then the CPU is also shared, right? But if you choose this one monthly one, you get the dedicated one, which is very nice. You can always upgrade that if you want, but we are much interested in the free one. So make sure to select the free one, that right here, and then so you say that your free cluster deal for experimental or is limited for sandbox. So here you choose the cloud provider you want. If you are interested in Azure, you can go for Azure. If you want to have AWS, Google, then you choose. These are the three cloud provider here showing in MongoDB environment right here. So what we are interested in is that we're going to try in and select Microsoft Azure if you want, and in here you can select the location you want. So you can choose the location which is much closer to you if you want, and if you select AWS too, you can choose the location that you want. So Azure here, I can say that I want it to be in Netherlands, for that is the default one right here. And then if you want, you can just put in some tags or some kind of key values or something like that, but we are leaving it default. We don't want to do anything, so we're going to create our cluster here, and then we want it to be deployed. So this is going to take some, but this is where you need to take note of right here. So when you create a project, you create a cluster. Inside the cluster, that is where your application is basically going to connect to the cluster. Inside the cluster, you're going to have your database connection and everything. So what we are doing is that, first of all, we need to create a username and password. So we're going to use that username and password to connect to the cluster, which we have already created something here. So when you go to our module like DB connection here, that is our connection URL. So our connection URI is going to contain password and then username, and with some kind of string coming from MongoDB. So take note of that when you are creating your MongoDB project. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to make sure that the username is the same as the password. Sometimes it's not the best practice, but in this video we are just doing the sample version. So if you are building a complex application, you can then choose which one you want to use, and then make sure that you copy the password if you cannot even remember, because in your connection URL or your connection string, you'll be asked to provide the password in there. Your username is going to be in there default for you. So for me, that is one thing. And you see that you create a user. So this user will be someone who will be able to connect to this cluster, and we are going to talk about this IP address. So when you want to connect, first of all, we have to create a user who is going to become some kind of admin that will connect. So let's say in your SQL server, you have already created your account with SQL server, and it's within the connection string, so that whenever you are connecting, you use that one to connect to the SQL server. So in this case, what we are going to do is that we are going to have our username and password coming in, and then our IP address, which is our current laptop IP address. It's also very important so that we know which device and which user can connect to the cluster. So let's go ahead and see that we want to create a user with this username and password. So we say create user, and now user is created. So user is created, the IP address is also created. So our current IP address that we are using is added, and the user is also added. So we choose a method. So here is the method that we want to use to connect to the cluster. And then you want to connect to the cluster, you can use Compass, you can use Shell, you can use the MongoDB for Visual Studio Code, then you can use the Atlas, SQL. But what we are interested in which we have already installed, is the drivers. So we are going to choose that one, and then we have already installed. So when you go to .NET, we choose C# and .NET. You see, you can use the command to install that, but we have already installed it. So when you go to the project, you can see that we have MongoDB driver here, which we have already installed that. So no need to install, you can install it from there, but when we started the application, we installed that one. So that is one thing we need to do. So we are going to see that, you see, this is the connection string which we are going to use to connect, and then you can see that there is a section that will ask for our password. Right now the password is in here, but when we say done, you see that, let's click here done, and then when we click connect, let's go and copy this one right here, and you can see now the connection string has been changed, and we need to provide in your password. So if you pasted your password somewhere, this is how you're going to do it. So what we are going to do, as I said, we are going to come into our application.json, app.setting.json, which we basically want to create in, we put in something in there. So what we are going to do is that we are going to go in there and make sure that we bring in something like this. So we're going in here, and then what we are going to do is that we are going to go in here something like this, and then we are going to have what we call MongoDB. So we're going to have MongoDB, right? So this is MongoDB, and then we are going to see in there, and then we are going to bring in what we have in this MongoDB settings here. So the first thing is going to be our connection string. So our connection string, or this one, we're going to say that this is it, and then we see that. So it means that we are going to provide this. And the second one that we want to do is the database name. So we are going to go in here to the database name like this right here, and then we're going to provide in the database name. So here, let's put in some kind of this and make sure that it's empty. So this is going to be our database name that we need, and then we are going to create the database, don't worry. And then we are seeing this. So the next thing that we need to do is also the correction name, which is going to be our product correction. So let's go here and then also trying to do that, and then we are going to see that this, so we are going to connect to this once whilst we move forward. So the first thing that we need is the connection URI, which is, we already have it here in MongoDB. So this is what we need, and then we have already created a project. So when you create a cluster right here, you can come to connect, right? So data service connect, and then in here we select the drivers, and then you'll be able to see this. So let's copy this and go back to this right now. So let's say that our connection URL is going to be this, and then what we are interested in is that we're going to copy the username, because the username is the same as the password. So you see something like this where it's asking you to provide your password in here. So I'm going to make sure that I delete where the password is, and then we're going to paste the username like this. So basically this is it. So you have your username and your password connecting to the cluster, which is the name of 0, and then mongodb.net and everything, which is, this is a similar to our normal SQL server connection string. Yeah, just that this is sitting in the cloud, right? This is not something you have locally, but you can install MongoDB locally and connect to it, which is going to be another video that we are going to do, right? So let's now focus on what we have in the cloud. So now we have our connection string. The next thing that we need to do here is that we need to go where we have network assets. So check what we have here. When you check your project, you can see that in one database that we have is cluster. We have in the database section, we have one cluster, and then in here you can see something we call network asset. So the network asset is something that help us to access to this or get access to this project or this database. And the first one is that our default IP address is being added. So it means that our current machine will be able to connect to the MongoDB, but we want to make sure that everything can connect, or every port can connect. So we are going to make it default, right? Yes, okay. So we are going to say add a port, right? So you click here, add IP address, here, right here, and then you can see that allow access from anywhere, which will make it easier. So anyone with this connection string or the details about this project will be able to connect. It's not only our machine or our local machine that we are using. So let's make it, and here is going to be 00, and then we confirm. So this is now going to create another service for us where we will be able to connect to this. Any device can connect to this. If you want, I wanted to show you this, but if you want, you can keep the default IP address, which is automatically configured using your device, the IP address. So let's go to database right here. And aside that, one thing that you need to do is that after the network access, you need to click on database. Now we don't have any database or correction, which we need to create that one too. So we are going to say add database. So that is not what we're going to do. We are not going to add a new user self. Okay, this is not what we want to do. So let's go into what we call let's see, triggers right here. We want to create in our correction and then create in our data. So now the goal is that we are not going to add a user rule or something like that. We are not going to do that. So database access or something like, we already have a user who can access this database which already created. So for us to create our database and correction, we go into the cluster, right? So we click on cluster right here, and then we have already done connect to the cluster. So if you want to connect to the cluster, we have already done that, which you go in and copy your your connection string or something. But let's go ahead and browse in corrections. So before, this is similar to Cosmos DB. So when you create this cluster right here, we don't have database, we don't have corrections in there. So the first thing that we need to do is that we're going to say that add my own. We are not going to add any sample one. We're going to say add my own data, and then here we'll be able to create a database. So let's create a product database, and then you see that the correction name here is going to be product list. So we have a database called product DB, which we can add more corrections to it. So, but the correction that we want to add right now is that because we want to talk to our product, so we're going to have product list correction right now. So that is what we're going to create, and then we're going to create this one. So now we are done, and when we start doing something, we will come back and see. So now we are done with our MongoDB, but we need to go into our project right here, as a database name right here is going to be this product DB, and then the correction name we want to use is going to be the product list. So let's copy that. So I want to copy that, but let's go and copy this. Let's paste this one in right here, and then do list. So what is happening right here is that now we have created everything on MongoDB. We have been able to create some kind of our connection string. We have our database name, and then we have our product. We have our correction name. So now we are going to create something we call app.db contest. So I'm going to create another class called app.db contest. App.db. Okay. Let's make it app.db contest or something like that. So this is basically going to connect to the our MongoDB, right? So this is going to connect to our MongoDB like what we used to do using SQL Server. So we're going to say app.db contest. Let's make the DB small, contest. So this is app.db contest, and this is going to connect into our MongoDB. So we are going to get access to the database name here, our database connection string and correction name, everything here, and then we are going to use MongoDB client to create an instance of it so that we'll be able to call it and connect to it. So this is the step that we are going to take right now. So let's go and then do that magic right here. So what we are going to do is that first of all, we are going to do this right here. So there is something in MongoDB called MongoDB correction, right? To get the correction, to give some kind of the correction name. Inside the correction, we are going to represent it with something, because we are saying that the correction is where our actual data is going to be stored, right? So we want to store the product model in the correction. So the first thing we need to do is that we need to create something called public. And we're going to bring the iMongo, right? iMongo correction right here, and then you can see it's coming in. So iMongo correction, this one is the one that we want, and then in here we bring in product. So we're going to bring in product, which is coming from the models, right? So this is it. We bring in product, and then what we are going to do is that we are going to say product. This one, let's give it a product product correction, right? So if we want to access this, we see that product correction, and then we are going to have our get and setters here. This run now, let's make it get, and let's try to save this. So now let's like what we used to do in our DB context when we are working on SQL Server. So we're going to see that public app DB context like this, and then what we are going to have is that we are going to have I option. So I option right now, so this is going to be I options. So let's see, I options right here coming from no, we want I option, not options. So let's say I options, we want I options right here. So let's see, I options coming from MongoDB, coming from ASP.NET Core, right? So, and then inside that, we're then going to bring in the class that we created, which is the MongoDB settings, right? DB settings. So let's say Mongo. Let's go and see the Mongo DB settings, which is this, because this contain all the property that we want, right? All the thing that we want, this one contains it, right? It has it. With this one, we'll be able to get, you can see we get our database name, we get correction name, and we want to use all of them in here. So that is one thing we need to do. And then when we get that, we want to do something like this. So this now settings, right? So the first thing that we want to do is that we're going to bring in the Mongo client. So let's go and say Mongo. We're going to bring in Mongo. See the Mongo client. This is coming in, and then we give it a name like client. So when we give it a client, we create the instance of it. So the instance of it then is going to be like, we want to get first of all the connection string. So we're going to see that new is called to new Mongo client, which is the instance of the Mongo client. And then we're going to bring in the settings, which we already have in here. So this settings, and then we're going to see that with value that inside that we want to get the connection URL. So this is then helping us to get that kind of connection URL. So the connection string for it's simple, right? So this is helping us to get that connection string from MongoDB. So that is one thing that we need to do. And then the second thing is that we need to also go and get the database name. So with that, we are going to bring something from MongoDB called iMongoDB database, right? So iMongo database. So let's go and see the iMongo database. So we are going to bring in iMongo database, and that one too, let's give it a name of database, and let's say that this also is called to client, right? Because we already have the Mongo client, and then we see that get database. So when we get database, we then can see that the database, we can see settings dot the value that we have here, and then inside that we have the database name. So you can see we have dot, and then we want, what we want to use in here is the database name. So this is basically it. So the first one here, this, let's give it a comment like this. You see that this is giving us connection string, right? Something like connection string, so something like this. And then this is giving us connecting to the database name, right? Connecting to the database name. So database name. So let's check the database name. So this is database name, and one thing that left is the correction. All right, so let's go in here. You see that product. Let's go here and see that. Let's do to connecting to the corrections, right? The correction name. So that is it. So that is one thing that we need to do, and then we're going to see that product. Let's give it this product product correction, which we already created. So which is this, right? This product correction, let's spell it well. Okay, so we are going to bring this product correction because it's already having the what we want, and then we're going to see that then now this one is go to database, and when it get correction, and then when it get correction, what we want to pass in is that we want to pass in product, right? So we want to pass in the product, and then when we get the product, we can then go ahead and see that this is also going to be like we see in the Mongo let's say settings that dot value. The value that we want is that we want the correction name right here. So basically this is it. This is basically how we connect to the MongoDB Atlas. I mean, what we have created in the cloud in our ASP.NET Core. So we have, I mean, let's go and register this as a singleton. I mean, right. So let's go here. I want to go and then under here we see that builder, and I'm going to say service, right? And then we're going to see that add singleton right here, and then what we want to add is the app DB context. So we are then register the app DB context like this. So we then want to register it, and then we are going to see it's going to be like this. So now this is what we need to do. We have created MongoDB, which is in the cloud. We have connected it into our ASP.NET Core Web API. So now we have MongoDB configured. The next thing is that we go fast and create our products like what we used to do in normal ASP.NET Core, I mean, application. So we first then have to, now we have a construct. We go to the service, and then we are going to work with the service, which is that we are going to create interfaces here. So the first thing I want to do is that I want to go ahead and create I want to create an interface which is called iProduct service interface. We add this one right here. So this is going to hold all the method that we want to create or we want to have. So the first one that we need is that we need to have tasks, and then what we are going to do is we're going to bring product DTO. So let's show that we are doing product DTO like that. Product DTO. Okay, the spelling is wrong. So product DTO like this, and then let's try to use the construct. So let's use that namespace here, and then we say that get product by ID. So first of all, we want to get product by ID. So this is the first interface we want to create. We want to give it a name, get product by ID, so that when we want to have a detail of the product. So this is normal interface we normally create. Get task product DTO. So it's going to return the product DTO and then get product by ID. So one thing that we can do is that we can copy this, but this time around the next one we would like to do is that we're going to say task like this, and then we are going to say that this is going to be INumerable because we are returning some kind of a product, right? So this is going to be basically all products coming in, and then see that get product sync. But get product sync, we can say get all product sync. Okay, so this return all product for us, and then we are going to have this task. You see that product DTO, this right here, and then this is now going to be where we want to create product. So we see that create product sync. So create product sync. This interface is basically we creating product. Okay, product sync, and then what happened is that it taking create product DTO. So what we're going to bring that's create product DTO right here, and then we give it create product DTO. So this is it. So this is basically interface for us to create. So basically, as I said, we in this project we are just performing a simple CLOUD functionality. So now we have create, get all, and then what we need to do is update and then delete. So we're going to say task right here, and then we bring in the product DTO, which is always the response, and then the next thing we're going to do is the update product sync. And then it's going to take in something like string right here. So it's going to take in a string of ID, because if you want to update it, and then it's going to take, it's taking the string of ID, and then you're going to have update product DTO right here. And then we say that update product DTO, right? So this is it. And that is what we have here. Let's terminate right now. So this is also an interface of we updating the product. So let's go and have a task here, and this is going to be delete. So this is delete, and then it has an ID. So basically this is it. This is we creating an interface. We are going to use this interface with service, and then we'll be able to create and then interact with our MongoDB. So now we need to go in and create something here. We can even copy this interface right now, and what is going to happen is that we're going to create a new class right here, then we're going to call it product interface. Then we inject this, we're going to create product service, and then we inject this product interface in. So we have this class right here, and what we are going to do is that we are going to then inject our product interface here, and then we are going to implement all the method coming in, so we can implement all the interfaces. So now you can see we have product, and the spellings are not good, so let's go and make sure that we have a good spellings right here in the interface. So here, first of all, get all product, create product. So this is not good, it should be product. So make sure to check the spellings, don't follow my spellings right here. So okay, product, and then here let's go and see that product. So these are the spellings. Check it well. Now let's go back to the service and implement this interface. Let's save this, and then let's implement it here so that we get the good new spellings coming in. So now you can see this is good. So this is basically what we need in the normal ASP.NET Core, where we have a service, and the service, what it does is that it talks to the database. So now we have MongoDB. So now our app DB context is basically talking to MongoDB, and then we want to interact with MongoDB straightforward in our service. So we first need to bring in that kind of the database. So we're going to say that private read only right here, and you say that app DB context, right? App DB context here, and then we can see that we want to make it a name of contest. So we can give it a name of contest right here. So we can see that contest, something like this, and this is going to be basically our database. And then we can then create a constructor, so we can then generate a constructor for this. So now we have the database in here. The next thing that we need to go in and arrange it well. So I want to arrange my service well. So first we have create, which is the first one, and then we have get all product, which is the second one. When we create, we get, and then this one is get by ID. So you can arrange it. It doesn't matter, but I want to arrange it well. So when we start from create, we go to get, and then we get by ID, and then we go delete, and then we go to update. So this is basically what I want. But I want to do something, right? I want to create some kind of validation method. So in MongoDB, we want to validate some kind of, when we are trying to create the user, we want to validate the ID. We want to validate create DTO, and this is a best practice for MongoDB. You will not see people doing this, but I just want to show you this so that when you are working with MongoDB, you can then take advantage of this kind of a structure or this architect, which is very nice. So I'm going to have a private, first of all, I'm going to have a private static class, right? Static void, and I'm going to give it the name of update object. So validate object, right? ID. So this is the name that I want to give it to this, and then this take in a string of ID, right? So this is basically what we want to do. And then we say that first of all, if the ID is empty, right? So if the ID is empty, what's happening is that we throw in an exception. So when the ID is empty, what happens is that we throw in exception. So new, but here we are throwing in MongoDB exception. So we are Mongo has some kind of exception, right? So we're going to say that in here, go and say that Mongo, right, exception, throw in new Mongo exception. So we say Mongo, right? Let's make sure it's coming. So we throw in new Mongo exception. And then in the Mongo exception, this is what we want to write in there. So here we throw in this new Mongo exception, right? So this is a new Mongo exception we want to throw in if there is no ID in. So that is one thing this validation method does. So we're going to say that we have another if method, right? That will also check if the Mongo, right? If the MongoDB, right? If MongoDB dot based on right here dot object ID, right? So object ID right here, we're going to say try pass. So try pass, right? Okay, so MongoDB object ID dot, let's see if we see the try pass here. So if based on dot object ID, we're going to say that try, okay, try pass this right now. So we want to do something like this. Then in here we say this. So this is not coming in. Let's check this one well. And the point is that why this is not coming in. So we also want to check the ID from the MongoDB exception. We first check our normal ASP.NET Core, check that if the ID is not empty. If it is not empty, right, we also check if it is valid ID coming from these people, right? So that is it. So that is basically it. So we have this method that we are going to use. So basically this is it, private static void, and this is also part of this. So let's check it well. Make sure it's in this class. Okay, so it's in this class. So the next one that I want to create, I want to have another method which is going to validate create DTO. So when we are creating a user, we have to make sure that we have a DTO. We validate the DTO. So also check, this is very simple. We check if the DTO, the valued user need to provide the value before they can create a product. And then if there is no value coming in, we say that product data data is required. If it is empty, we can say that product name is. So this is we accessing name cannot be empty. So if it's empty, we say that product name is required. So this is what we call this method validate create DTO, and then this is validate object ID. So that is it. And then we have this one. So we are going to do the same for update. So when you are creating, you have this. When you are doing update too, you also have the same one like the create, right? So validate updates and validate create DTO. So when you are trying to update user, we also check if you provide a required stuff. So if the DTO, you cannot just go and make sure that if you want to update user, everything is empty, and then you update, and no, we check this validation check. So this is something I'm adding it up, and it is the best practice. You can create another class and do all the validation in there. So, and then we also want to have a map, which we are not using automapper here, so we want to do some kind of a class which we call it map to do, right? Map to DTO, right? Map to DTO, and this basically map everything into the DTO. So this is it. So this is saying that there is no ID here in the product. Okay, because this one I give it small ID right here. So okay, so this is it. We are saying that product does not contain ID. So let's go to the product and check if there is no ID here. So we basically have an ID. So it's saying that product does not contain ID, which is not something we understand. So let's see. We say product dot ID, and then you see that product cannot convert hint, right, to string. So it means that here, when we go here, we are trying to say this is hint, which is basically to be string like this. So let's go back to the service, and now we are expecting that this error goes away. So basically we have this method that we created, and instead of validate, right? So this validate ID, right? So simple like that. And then this is validate create DTO, validate create DTO. So when we are creating a user, this should be like create DTO. So that is one thing. And the second one is that we need to go and see that validate what we call update DTO, right? Update DTO. So something like that. And then you see that map everything right here, right? Map everything to DTO. So something like that we want to do. Let's check the experience, right? So this is basically it. Let's go ahead and first of all trying to create this method. So if we want to create a product here, the first thing that we need to do is that we call in validate create DTO, and then we pass in this. So this is the first method that we need to call. So this is going to check that everything that we are going to do here, we provide invalid when we want to create a user. So when we do that, we say that product is called to new product, right? So new product right here, and then we say this, and we say name here is called to create product.name, and then we are going to say description here is called create this, and then we are saying that price right here is also going to this. So basically this is what we want, and then this is the property we are getting from the product model. So that is it. So the next thing for us to do is that we are going to then have the property in here. So whatever the user is going to put in, we are trying to store that one in the product. So now this variable contain whatever the user trying to and will enter. So let's put this into a try catch. So we're going to see that try, and then in here I'm going to see that catch. So catch exception, right? And we are going to make it better for now in here. Let's say await. So await, we go into our context database. So now let's say the user have entered everything. We go into the database context, and then what we want to do is that we bring in the product, the correction that we want to put everything in. And here we need to have in MongoDB properties coming in, which is going to be, let's check this one. So we have the context, and then we have the correction coming in, and this is supposed to be async, and this is async, and we need to have the MongoDB has a way of we interact with different stuff, right? So they have something like insert, one, delete, many. So we can see all these ones are coming in, and this is coming from MongoDB. So this is how they normally deal with data. So they have insert. So if I go in and say that insert, you can see that insert many, and this means that we can then insert a lot of data at once, and then insert many sync, insert one. But we are going to go and pick this one, insert one, insert one sync, and then we then insert whatever the user is going to enter. We're already saying that this is now having this, right? So we are creating an instance of a product, and then we store that one in this variable. So whatever user put in is going to be there. And then the next one we're going to do is that I said that we say that return, so return map, we call this map to do, and then we map in our DTO inside. Okay, so now it has this. So let's go to this catch, and then if there is an exception, we throw in new Mongo exception. So the exception that will come should be Mongo exception, right? So we want to have this Mongo exception, and then we want to have this $sign coming in, and then what we are saying is that we are saying that fail to create product, right? Fail to create product, and then here we specify the error coming in. So here we are going to say that the error coming in, and then the message, and then we close this. So the error that is coming in, we create that. So this is basically helping us to create API, creating a product. So this is the first step for us to create a product. Okay, so that is it. So the next thing for us to do, fail. Let's write the fail wall, right? Fail to create a product. Fail to create a product. Oh, what is happening? Okay, failed. Okay, we need to add E here. Okay, so this is it, and then get product is very easy. So we want to get our product. Let's make our way this one async. So now we have created we have the service that creates the product, and then we are going to also go and then get this one. I'm going to put this into a try catch very fast, and then in here we're going to see we bring in catch, and then we do this. So the first thing that we want to do is that we're going to say var product, because we want to go in the database and find all the products in there and see how we return it. So product, and then we go say await here, and then we bring in our context right here, and then we go into the correction that we have in here, and then we're going to see that find. So we're going to find this, and then when we find the find coming in with something we call builder here, from this is coming from MongoDB, and then we are going to say that what we want to find here is product. So product is what we want to find. So product in here, and then what we are going to say that, so this is builders. So let's make sure to so find builder, so dot find builder builders, right? And then we have product. So here we need to go and see that we need to have filters. So let's check this one. Well, we have this context. The error is saying that a static helper class contain a various builder, right? So a static class helper contain a various builder. Okay, so let's check which builder are we bringing right now. So builder, right? So we see builders. and then this is the builder we want, and then this builder taking product, right? And then when it taking product, here we need to have filter right here, and then the filter here we say empty, right? So this is basically helping us to get all the products in the database. So here we're going to say that to sync. Okay, so when we get everything, we want to be to list syncs like we used to do in SQL Server. So when we get all the thing, we see that return product. So now product, and then we see select here, and then we are going to bring in map to DTO. So map to do DTO class that we created. So now we go into the database, and then we get all the products that we have in the database, we return it, and then we got map to do, this class that we have here, which returns everything for us. So, and then the next thing we want to do is that if there is an error, we want to throw in the exception coming in. So throw in new Mongo exception, right? And then this exception, what we want to do is that we probably want to do something like this, and then we have our $sign here, and what we are going to see is that failed. So this time around, failed to retrieve product. So failed to retrieve product, and then what will happen is that we bring in the real error message here. So that is it, and then we terminate this one. So this is basically also fetching all product for us. Let's do the same thing for get by ID. So get by ID 2 is going to be, first of all we need to go validate object ID, that method private method that we have here, which is then going to validate the ID here. So validate object ID, which is this one. So first of all, this will execute and check that the ID that we are providing is valid, right? It's valid ID. So if it is valid ID, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do try catch. I'm going to put everything into a try catch right here. So a try catch, and then we're going to say var filter, right? So we want to filter in because we want to get it by ID, so we want to filter in something, and then here we're going to have the builders again coming in, and then what we want is product. So here let's go and bring in product, and then when we get product again, what we do is that we also go and bring the filter in, and then we see that UQ, right? So let's see that UQ like this. So this, and then in here what we provide in here is that we want to see that P, this one you can use whatever you want, because we want to make sure that the ID provided, so P dot ID here, and then we see that ID. That is one thing that we want to have. And then when we get this, we say var product. So product, var product right here is called to await. So await context right here, await context. So await context like this, and then we go into the product correction right here again, and then we say we find the filter, so the filter that we have created. So find, and then in the find we see this filter coming in. So this filter we created here, find in, and then when we do that, we see that first default. So first default sync, this is it. So this basically help us to get the filter. When we put in ID, it's to filter everything and then give that product with an ID. So the next thing we can do is that when there is an error, what do? We throw in new Mongo exception. So we see that Mongo exception. right? So the Mongo exception is what we want to throw in here, and then we have this. We bring in our $sign first, and then what we are going to say is that product. We're going to say that product here, right, with ID, and then we're going to see that ID coming in, not found, something like this, right? So if there is no product in, so if found, what we do is that we return them. So map to do, and then what happened is that we go in there and then we put the product inside that map too. So here, when we are going to see that exception, right? So when there is an exception, and we say that when the exception is, so let's go and see that when the exception, right? So when the exception is no Mongo exception, right? What we want to do is that we want to throw in new Mongo Mongo exception, right? So Mongo exception, and then we're going to see that we have this one in, and then we bring in our $sign right here, and then we are going to see that database. We're going to see database error, and then we probably want to go and then give you the error message that is coming in, and then we close this, and then we terminate that run. So this is also giving us a product by ID. So let's fix this parents right here. So retrieve, right? So let's when we see that we couldn't retrieve the products coming in, so okay, let's spare it just one more. So I'm going to say that retrieve, right? So we failed to retrieve. So the now is that we need to have update, which is another one we need to do. So if you want to update, you know, we already have the validating method that try to update that one. So we first need to go with that and then see that we first call the method of this. So update, validate, and then validate object ID. Then we pass in the ID. Oh, validate object ID. We pass in the ID. Second one is that we validate update DTO here, and then we pass in update DTO. Okay, so this is the private method that we created here, which is doing the validation for us. So now, when everything is validated, and then we do try catch for like what we are doing for the rest here, and then we see that catch exception, right? So we're gonna say exception, and then we put the exception to this, and then we see that this is going to be like this. Okay, so now let's go to the try. So we see that var update is equal to builder with us, right? And then what we want to update is product, right? So we want to update product right here, and then we bring in update. So something like this. Okay, so when we do that, the first thing we need to set so like what we used to do, we're going to set the name and everything. So we see that P here, right, is called to P name, right? So the name is called to this name, and in here we're going to do the same for set, right? And then what are we going to do? We say that P, and then we say that P is called to this, and then we have description. Okay, and then do set, and then we're going to do the same for price, right? So we say that P here, you can give anything that you want. So dot set well, because we want to set new value coming in where the user want to try to do. So we set a p going like this, and then we see that dot p. Okay, so this is going to be p price coming in, and then we go like this. So this is basically it. So when it happens like that, we're going to say that var product coming in like this, and then we are going to say that this is going to await, and then we bring in the context. We go into the database. So when we go into the database, we go and then we do the product correction again, and then we see that find and update. So find and update is coming from MongoDB. Find and update, right? Find and update. That is what we want to do. Find one and update. So this is find one update sync, and then this inside this one, what we want to do is that we bring in the builders again. So when we bring in the builder, we then see that product. So we have our product inside, and then we're gonna filter in, so like what we did with the one, and then we're going to see that we have this UQ coming in, right? And then what we want to do is that in here we want to do p, right? And then we see that p id, because we want to update by id here, and then we see that id. Okay, and then when we get that, we do this and see the update, right? So this is basically going to say update. So the price here, we need to terminate this, right? Okay, and then here we're going to bring in update. So when we get the update, we're going to say new. So let's check, we are making a mistake here. So we say that var, and then we go to the context. So let's make this small right now. Let's make this 180 to check what we are doing here. So the first one that we are doing is that we say var product, right? Await, and then we say context, and then we go in there and say find one and update, right? And then we see builders right here, product, and then we filter in, and then we see product this, and then we need to bring in update, right? Then inside the update, what happened is that we need to go and bring in something called new find and update sync. So basically this method here is the method, this is what we're going to do. So find id filter right here, and update. Okay, so the update that we did, which is this, is not right. So the spellings here is not right. That's why we are getting an error. So let's make sure this is update. Make sure this is update, right? And then let's make sure this and this is the same. So this update, then pick this update, because that is the update that we are using. Now the error we are seeing, that local variable name update is already defined, right? So that is it. Let's check this. So the update. So let's go back to this. It's a new find one and update sync, and then we map in. So basically this is going to be the complete method that we want to do right here. We want to have this. So this is basically it. This is how we need to do it. Find, we filter in, we call update, and then this is going to update what we have in the MongoDB environment. So now what about we are deleting it? So delete method right here is also very simple, and this is what we're going to do for delete. I have the service here, so which is we call valid. I mean, we always check the ID. So anything that is using ID, like update, gets by ID, and deletes by ID, we already have a method that is trying to validate the ID. And then we check, we go in there, we find, and then when the ID is equal to the one they are providing, delete count is going to 0, and then we remove everything from it, right? So this is basically the service that we need to have, right? And as it turns out that the name that we have is let's go back, right? Okay, so what will happen is that the interface name is not the same as the one we have. So the update should be like this. This is supposed to be the update, and this is supposed to be create update DTO. So this is going to be update DTO, and this is going to be update DTO, right? So this is basically the update, right? Okay, the update DTO, and then this is going to be update DTO. So this is basically the update service, and then the delete service too is going to look like this. So first of all, we validate that one too right here, and then we are getting an error that we need to make sure that the delete service is looking like this. So this is basically the delete method coming in, and you see that the interface will tell us that it's not implementing the product delete. So delete product sync. Let's go to the service iService here, and then we have to make sure that we change this to be delete product async, right? So this is basically taking Boolean. So if we want to delete, it taking Boolean. So let's save that. Let's come to our service and let's save this. So now everything is working on our service, right? So we have everything here. So we just move straight forward to our controller and start implementing the controller so that we can then also move to the React. So now we need to go ahead and create a product controller, and then we can then start working from the controller, and then we can start interacting with our API. So let's go to the controller from here. I'm going to create a new class right here, and then we are going to see that product controller. So this is basically going to be ASP.NET Core controller. So the first thing is that we say that API controller, and then the route right here, we can see that the route here is going to be API. So we're going to say API, let's make it small, API slash some kind of controller, right? So it should be like this. So we have this API and everything coming in, and one thing that we need to bring in is that we need to make sure to bring in the service, right? The iService, so that we can then interact with it. So now the scenario that we have in here is that we have MongoDB in the cloud. We have connected it through our app.db contest, and then we have used the app.db contest with the service, and then now we are using the service with the controller. Okay, so we see that read only, and then we see read only. We say I product service, right? So I product service coming in right here, and then see that product service, and then we can create a constructor for it. So we see that generate a constructor. We have this, and then this is going to be very easy. So we are going to create up our API. So the first one is nowadays we're going to say that create product, right? So to create a product, we are going to say http post. So http post right here, and then nowadays we are using best practice whenever we are creating an API right here in this YouTube channel. So I'm going to have the response type and everything coming in. So this is something whenever you are creating an API in ESP.NET Core you can use. So this is response type status code, right? So when you create this is supposed to show, and then when there is a bad request, this is supposed to show in right here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say that public async. So this code project is basically using best practice. That's why we have taken a lot of time to coming up with this. So we're going to say that we have action resource, and then we have action resource coming in right here, and then in here what we need to do is that we need to go and bring in product DTO. So product DTO, because this the response of this is the product DTO. So we have this and it's a create, we can say that create product, right? We give the controller name like that, create product, and it's going to be like this. And then what is going to happen is that inside this we say this is from body, right? And then we have this, and then we do this. So this is not accept action resource, this is action resource. So let's make sure this is action resource, not accept action resource. So this is it, and this is what we have right here, and this is an async. So we're going to say that try catch. So this is a try catch. We say var product. So var product right here. So var product is called to await. So this is going to await, and then we go into the product service. What's happening is that we bring in create product sync, right? And then we have to make sure that we have product DTOs in there. We put in product DTO right here for that, and the point is that it's not null, right? So we need to make sure, and then we see that return created, right? Created at action resource. It's not action resource, so say created at resource, right? Created at action. So let's make this capital letter right here so that it will come created at, right? Action. So action, it's not action resource, it's action like this. And then what we need to do is that we're gonna bring in the name of and then we're gonna see that get product by ID, which is basically we first do get product by ID to check if that product that we want to have does not exist, right? So we probably going to create that, but as we move forward we're going to create a method where that gets product by ID. But for now, let's have this controller so that we move first. I've already prepared the controllers, so let me bring them so that we can move fast. So this is what we have, and then this is giving us an error, so let's make sure to have them coming in. So this is going to be product DTO, right? So this is going to be product DTO, and we don't need any iLogger right here. We don't have any iLogger, or we can then use iLogger if we want. So let's go here and make sure that we bring in iLogger here to maybe log up some services, and then we do this here in the controller. So in the controller we place this so that we can log something. So let's check this one right here. So now this is basically our API, which is create our that is going to create a product, and currently we are getting an error, but this one is get product by ID, which we are going to create, but we are getting an error here that this does not even a bad request. So let's debug the code. We have the API controller, we have the route. Okay, we are making a mistake here. So this is supposed to be controller base, right? Okay, good. And now this one goes. So don't worry about this, because when you are creating a project, we want to check if that project with the ID exists already. That is what I'm doing here right now. So the next thing is that we want to get product by ID. So this is also going to be a very easy controller. So get product by ID, and that is it. So for that one too, we are going to put it here, and it's use the same format, right? So what happens is that we go and use the service get product by ID, get the ID, we return. Okay, if there is an error, we catch those error, and then we are using this kind of best practice nowadays, how the best way of creating a controller. So this is a result, response type, right? When it's success, what is, so if there is no ID 404, if there is a bad request, if everything is succeed, we get 200. So that is it. And then we need to also have get all product. So when we get product by ID, the next one also get all product. So this is also very simple that endpoint that I created. The reason why I'm doing this is that this is very easy. Just follow the same format, and I'll make sure that the code is available for you. So this is very easy too. You have this get by ID. We have this, which is normal way of creating controller, and then we go to the service and it gets all product sync, and we return. Okay, if there is an error, we catch that error. So this is a normal way of creating controller. So if you want to learn how to maybe understand how to create a controller, you can check up my .NET 9 crash course, where we started building everything from scratch. But this is something for us to speed up, right? Okay, so the next thing is that we want to update product, right? So for that one too is very easy. So we go ahead and say that we want to update product, and it's also the same. We go in there, we call that method, and then we say that we return okay, and then when there is an error, we catch the error. So the last one will be where we want to delete product, right? So let's go in here and see that we want to delete product. Endpoint also here. So this endpoint is easy to create. What is the difficult one is the service. So we have already created a service, and the rest is normal ASP.NET Core controller, how you create controllers and everything. So the only thing that we are adding is nowadays we are adding this best practice here. So delete, we go in, is form route, we go into the service, and then we call the delete product sync, and then we pass in the ID that the user is going to pass in, and then we see that no content. If there is an error, we catch that one. And then in here too, you can see that we want to update. We go into the service, we say update sync ID, and then we pass in the DTO, which is this what the user is going to enter, and then we return okay if everything goes successful. If there is an error, we catch in from the Mongo exception. So that is it. So one thing that we need to do is that we need to go in here, and then we want to see that we want to register our service, right? So we want to go in here and bring these things in here under here. And this one, what it does, that first of all, we are registered this MongoDB settings to get a session which is from our app settings, right? So app settings.json, we are getting everything from there and register it here, so that whenever we run the application, it will create an instance, and then we are register our normal service here. So this is basically what we need. The only thing that left is we are going to create calls, right? Because we are going to make a request to this in React. But for now, let's make sure to save everything and run the application and check if everything is working perfectly as we expect. So now let's go here, and then you can see this is Scala. One thing I love about Scala is that everything is very concise. So now in Scala we have post, where it can help us to post a product. We have get, this is getting all product. So let's make a request of getting product and see, and then there is an error coming in saying that internal server error. So it means that this cannot connect to MongoDB. So let's make sure to fix this. Let's also check post. let's check post if that one too works. Okay, so it means that there is an error coming from the configuration. There is an error coming from the configuration, that is the connection string. So let's make sure to check that one right now. So to check now, the error that is coming from Scalar is saying that it's coming from our database or our Mongo drivers. So what we can do is that check here the section that we are getting from the app settings is that we are getting MongoDB. This is what we want to get. So let's copy this and let's go to our app settings.json, and you can see here it's not the same. So let's paste this right here and save. So let's go back and then save this too, so that now the names are the same, so it can then get that one for us. So we are running the application. Let's go back to Scalar and let's try to refresh that one. And now let's make a request to our MongoDB and see if it comes. So now you can see it's connected and it's making a request to our MongoDB right here, and then you can see it's working. So Scalar is making a request. You can see everything is turning up like this, but it's trying to connect, and you can see now everything is working. It's empty, so it means that we don't have anything in the MongoDB database. So let's first of all go and create a product. So Scalar will give us something here, and I'm going to see that test name. Okay, name test, right? So name test, and I'm going to see that we give it the description of this is our first product, okay, that we are testing. So this is it, and then the price here, I'm going to give it 20. So forget about the names, let's make a request. Boom, and now you see everything is going in here. So we have make our first post. Let's do more posts, and then when we connect this to React, you are going to see, so test 2, and then we change the price to something like this, and then it goes. So now that is it. Let's go to MongoDB right here. This is MongoDB. We created a database, right? So now let's check if we have some data in here. Let's go to this correction right now and check. Let's find index. We want to check if there is a product in. You can see some products are in. Okay, so we want to find what is in this and then product list is coming in. We do this, and then there is a results coming in. So right now we have some data coming in. We want to check if the data is here. So we want to make a query. Let's check if it gives us all we want. Okay, it's taking us to this one, but if we want to check in real time, this is not what we want. We want to check our correction and check if we have data in the correction. So query results is 1 out of 2, and then the index, so we can see we have some 2 here, but I want to see where we can get the data coming in. And you can see we have some data here which was 1 minute ago coming in, right? And then we do search index, but everything is showing that we have data in. So let's go and then make get request. So get request, we test this right here, and then you can see we have data coming in. So now we have data in our MongoDB, right? Even if we are not seeing it in the MongoDB right now, it's working. The database is working. So we can get this by ID. So let's test this by ID. And Scalar, you paste this one here. You send, and then you see it's trying to filter this one out, right? This is one thing about Scalar. And then let's go and update. we check the update to is that one works. So the update, what will happen is that we paste in the ID, and then we are going to give a name of this. We're going to say that update, right? Update, and then the next thing is that we're going to say that update just like that. And then in here, we're going to say 40. So, and now you can see the ID, we have updated this. So if I go back and I want to get this by ID, if I paste in this ID right here in scalar like this, and then we send, you can see we are getting this. So if we get all products right now, we get all of this coming in right now. So this is very, very nice. We can delete one of them and check if all the endpoints is working before we move to React. So we can also go in providing this, and then we hit send, and then everything is working, no content. Okay, good. And now let's get the product that we have right here, and then we should have only one product. I mean, this is working. So now our API is working. Now there is one thing that we need to do, which we are going to create in the extension, because we are going to make a request to React, and then we need to enable calls, right? So we are going to go in here, and then we are going to create something in the extension method right here. I'm going to add this, and then I'm going to call it application configure application service right here, and this is supposed to be static partial class. So static partial class, and then what we're going to do is that I've prepared how we we create calls right here. So it's very easy for us to do. So we create a new static class. We say configure call, and then we use the I service from ASP.NET Core, and then we use the I configuration. We say allow calls, and this is the name that we are giving to the call, and then we say allow origin, allow method, alright, allow high headers, right? So this is will help us to make a request to this endpoint using React. So let's go to our program.cs and then try to register this call right here. So to register calls in your, it's kind of a middleware. So the first thing you need to do is that you need to, first of all, we can go to the top right here, and then let's bring in that class that we created, service, right? Let's say configure call, right? So configure call, which is this, in, and then what's happening is that here we have builder in, and then we see that configuration. So this is what we need, just like that. And then when we come here, we are going to use that middleware app use calls, right? And then here, what is the name of the call? We see that the name that we gave to the course here is what? Call policy. So let's go and then copy that call policy, and let's go to the program.cs right here, and then paste this one in. So this will then help us to create our React app. So now we are done. Let's go and create our React with TailwindCSS. So that will be the next thing, connecting this to the front end. Now the back end is working. Let's connect this into the front end. So what is going to happen is that now I have opened that's the folder right where I want to create my React app. So now this is what I have, right, which I'm going to create my React app here. So when you check, we don't have anything here. So I'm going to open this with VS Code, so that we can then go ahead and create our products or our project in there. So I'm going to bring in VS Code. Okay, so this is VS Code coming in. Let me bring in VS Code so that we can then create our TailwindCSS and React app. So now we have our VS Code here, which is basically where we are going to create our React app in here. So don't worry about my previous one. So I'm going to open the terminal here, and then we are going to go and search for TailwindCSS and Vite. So we're going to say that TailwindCSS Vite like this, and then it's going to open the TailwindCSS for us. So this is what we need to do to create our React app. So the first thing that we need to do is coming in with this command. So let's go to here and paste in there. So here we are going to add something. Check this command very well, because we want to add React, which is going to be TypeScript project. So we are not using default JavaScript. So we are using this npm create Vite at latest, and then this thing that we have in here is just telling the command that we need to use the default name, like folder name. So it's going to have client React. If you like, you can specify a project name in there, right? But we can then go and see that we can even have MongoDB product, right, client. So something like this, and this is going to be the project name, right? Okay, so when you hit like this, it's going to bootstrap everything, and it's going to ask that this is the name we want to use, and then we are going to say that yes, we want to use this. So now let's list, and then let's cd into the project, right? So okay, let's go like that, and let's navigate to the project that we have created here, and I'm going to do this. So now when we open this, we see all of these things coming in, and then we are going to do the npm install, because we have created a new project. We need node model and everything coming in. So we first do npm install, and they're going to install all the necessary packages for us. And then whilst it's trying to install, let's see what TailwindCSS for. TailwindCSS, after creating the project, we cd into the project which is already done that, and then we are going to install this. So let's copy this and go back to the project right here. So it's trying to install everything for us, so we can create a new terminal like this. We list this, and then we see that cd, and then in here we can paste this one in here, and it's also going to install all this thing for us. So it's going to install TailwindCSS, post TSS, and then that auto prefixer or something like that, and then we are going to get all of this coming in for us, so that we can have some configurations that we are going to do. So when you check the TailwindCSS, okay, we go ahead and then we hit nps, and then it's going to initiate that. So we are going to copy this. Let's copy this, and then going to the project again. So let's go back to the project and go to some kind of Vite, right? We can see TailwindCSS config right here, and then we post everything inside that. So that we have already set everything up. Let's go back, and then we copy this, and then they are saying that we should go for TailwindCSS where we have the index.scs. So let's go back to the index right here, and then make sure to replace everything, and let's delete app.css. Let's go to the app right here. We should delete this counter thing from it. Let's close this. So now let's clean this code. Let's do this. Make sure to delete everything from here, because we are going to do our own thing. So we can then see that h1, and then see that hello, right? And to check if everything is working, we see class name, and you see that test underline or something like that to check if everything works. So there is an error coming in here. Let's fix that, and let's go and run this application and check. So we're going to say that npm run diff, right? So npm run diff, and let's hit this, open the terminal, and then you can see hello is now underlined. Let's see if we hit test center, is going to be at the center. So we're going to say test center. Okay, and then let's go back and check if everything is at the center. Okay, good. It means that now the Tailwind CSS is working. So there is some packages that we need to install, which is, first of all, we need to install Axios, right, which we are going to use to make our API calls. So we're going to see that Axios, right, install something like that, npm. We can do npm, and then we have this Axios install Axios npm. So let's go to the npm and grab that one and trying to install that right here. So this is what we need to do. So when you check the npm, this is how we try to install that. Let's go to here, and then let's go to another terminal right here and make sure to paste in this, and they say the npm install Axios, and this is going to install that. So the next thing we need to do is React router DOM. So we are going to do routing, React router DOM install. So this is also one thing that we are going to install right here. So you can also see that npm install React router DOM. So let's go back to the project and make sure to also install this. So basically this is what we need right now, and we are going to create another folder right here called API, where we are going to configure our Axios in there so that we can make a request to this API that we have at the backend. And then I'm going to create another component called component. Let's create another folder called component. So this is going to be component. Okay, it's going to be component. So this is component. So in here we are going to create something called api.ts. So this is basically going to help us to configure Axios right now. And one thing about this is that when we go back to the browser and then we go back to Scala, right? With Scala, whenever we want to make an API call, we choose which service that we want to use, right? So when you check in here, we can use Axios to make an API call in the Scala environment. So we're going to check Axios right here, and then you see how it's doing it, right? So when you check this API, it's running on which port? Port 72121. I mean 212, right? That is what is running. So what we are going to do here is that we are going to create in const. So we're going to bring in something we call const, and then in here let's say const API, and then this is going to go to Axios right here. Let's bring in the Axios right here. Okay, so Axios, right, like that. And then what it's going to do is that the Axios has something called create, right? And then it's going to be like this, and then inside that we're going to have this. So this is it, and then it has something called base URL. So the base URL is where our application is running, and when we go here, the base URL that we have in here is basically this. So http localhost 7212. So let's go and do that, 7212. So that is basically our base URL. So we're going to see that this is going to be 7212/API. So because in our backend the endpoint is API, right? So when you check here, you can see there is an API at the middle, right? And this is the URL. I mean, this is what is right, 7212. So localhost, and this is kind of HTTPS, right? Okay, so we can send this and see that this is working on HTTPS. So let's go in there and check. This is an HTTPS. Okay, good. And then the second one that we basically want to have here is header, right? So it normally has headers. So the header we want to have is content type. We see JSON. and then we are going to say that accept, right? Accept JSON type, right? This is basically all we want to have. We want to have this, and then we terminate this, and then we say export default API. So this is what we're going to use in our application to make API calls, right? So the next thing that we need to do is to go ahead and create our component. Or first of all, we are going to have a component that will help us to create product, right? So we're going to have a component that will help us to create a product. So we're going to see that this, and then one thing about React is that we can hit RAFC, right? And then it generates the component for you. So when you have that kind of React snippets, extension install, you can do this. And then the second one that we want to do is that we need to create a component that will help us to edit products, right? So we're going to create that, and you see that this one, and then we are going to see that RFC. So we have to also have one that help us to create edit product. So now we have create edit. We then need to have product details. So something that is going to show all the product details for us, and then that is it. Okay, so we're going to see that RTS. So the next thing that we're going to do is product list. So this is what we're going to show in the home page default. So the product detail is when you view that one with the ID. So we're going to see that this, and then this go like that. And then we are going to have a simple nav bar, right? Navigation bar at the top. When we open the first one, you saw that we was having navigation. So let's go and create the navigation bar first in the React environment. So we have this, and then we can go ahead and do that right now. Also create this, and then we can also create this RFC. Okay, RFC. Okay, good. So now we have create, we have edit, we have navigation bar, we have product details and product list, right? So this is basically it. The one thing that I want us to create is interface, because we want to make sure that what we have in the backend is also we mapping the interface with the response coming in from the backend. So we have interface, and I'm going to name this base interface, right? So let's see, this is base interface. Okay, no, let's rename this to because we are using TypeScript, so we're going to name this like TS. So .ts. So this is it, and then we are going to see that RFC. Okay, this is not and then we are going to see export default. Export interface kind of product, right? So let's have this kind of products interface like this. So products, let's spell it well. Okay, go back and see that product. Okay, and the product, we have ID as a string, and then the second thing we have description, right? So we have description coming in. So we have description coming in. So description as a string. Then we have price. So let's check the spellings of the description to description. So this description, right? So we have this. So this is going to be the default interface we are going to use. So the first thing that I want us to work on is the navigation bar, and then we come to the routing thing, right? So we are going to have how we are going to configure our route. So let's go and then create our navigation bar right here, which is a very simple UI. So I've already prepared the UI. It's a simple UI which it has some kind of, it's use React router DOM link, which a link to the pages, like if you want to create a new page, a link to that, right? So this is basically it. Let's go and then import this coming from React Router DOM. So this is very simple UI which we are going to use here. The UI right here we have is that we have this link which is coming from React Router DOM. What it does is that when the user click on product store, it navigates us to home page. When the user click link here, it goes to the route that we are going to create. So in top there, we are going to see add new product. When the user click that, we go to this route of create new product, right? Okay, so let's go to the app.cs here. Let's go and configure all the routing stuff. So one thing that we need to do here is that we are going to do route. So for us to do routing stuff, we first of all going to bring this from React Router DOM called router here. Then we close in this. So for me, I'm going to have a div here, and that div is going to route everything up, right? So we're going to have a class name of this div, and I'm going to say that this one going to the main screen, right? Okay, and I'm going to say that the background here is going to be green 100. So we have this, and this is going to have the whole, we are going to wrap everything in there so that we have a good interface coming in. So the next thing is that we first of all need to bring in the navigation bar. So we say nav bar, right, which we created. So this nav bar coming in, which is going to be at the top. We need to close it like this. So this is going to be at the top, which is the navigation bar at the top, right? And then we're gonna have another thing coming from React Router DOM. So if you have the router, we are going to say that, okay, we want to do routes, right? So now we don't want only route, we want routes, right? So inside the routes, we are going to have there is an error coming say that the chart is missing the following type, right? It's missing React type, location, and everything. So we are going to put a lot of things in that, don't worry. So the first thing that we need to do is now we want to route one route. So we see that this is going to be route, and then the route is that the path that we want to have, here is that it's home page, right? And then the home page is going to have what we call the product list, right? So so this in the React is home page, right? So this is home page, and then we have element. So the element is basically is equal to the what we want to do. So what component do we want to render here? Then I'm going to say that product details, right? Product, we want to do product list, because that will be the default thing that we want to show to the user. So this is it for the first time. And then the second one we want to do right here is that we want to also go and have another one where it's going to be, we can copy this, right? So that we move fast. So we can copy this right here, and then we paste in there. So this time around, this is going to be product/id. So product, and then we see that slash like this, and then we're going to see that id. So this is basically, it's going to be product details. So this one, when we pass in the id, it should be product details. So product, we have already created that component. So we see that product details, right? So this is what we're going to use. So when you pass in the ID for that component, it gives you the details of that product. So then the second thing is that we paste in this, and what we're going to do is that we're going to say that create. So this time around is going to be create product, right? So create product is what we're going to do. So create product, and then here we're going to bring in create product component. So this is basically React router DOM taking care of them. Create component, create product, right? Component, that is it. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is basically edit. So edit is edit product /id, and you see that this is going to go in and give us edit product component. So basically this is it. So let's go up right now and then make sure that those error coming in shouldn't be exist, right? So what we're going to do is that in here we have route, and then we are going to make sure that we have this browser thing, and we're going to say as this, right? As router and everything coming in from React router DOM. So the first one is the router. So where is the router coming in? We have the routes and everything, and you see that the path here is that it's not assignable to the type of. We are getting an error coming in, which is not what we want. So let's go back and check why are we getting this error coming in. That type element is missing, right? It's missing the following property: location, navigator, React prop. So we need to check this one very well. So the router should be the main thing. It's giving us an error. So let's find a way to fix this error that is coming in here. So basically it's saying that because we call something the browser router, which mostly we need to instantiate that before we can use this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace everything with that. So what we are doing is that we say browser router as router routes and everything. So make sure to do it. The import should be like this, and this is a simple way to do it. So now we have this coming in, which the default one. We have our navigation bar coming in. So let's go to our app here, Vite, and then you can see we now have this, but when you click here, nothing will happen. So you can see right now when we click create here, we have it's render create product. So when we go back home, it's giving us product list. So it means that we are making the progress. So this is the page we have here. This is our navigation bar. We have to go ahead and start working on fetching the product from the backend and display it here. So now the first thing is that we need to work on the product list, because this is the first thing that we need to do, right? And the product list is the first thing that will show in the UI. So what I'm going to do is that I have created all the method in the UI. So we bring in the UI, we create the method ourselves, right? So because the UI is simple thing you can do, but the method in there is something you can, you need to learn how to create that if you are watching this video. So I have prepared simple UI. We cannot create all the UIs in here, right? So I'm going to bring the UI here. What we have is the UI. So don't worry about what we have. We're going to create all these things. I have added all the things that we need, and then we are going to create all this method, right? So first of all, we need to map in all the product coming from the backend, and then navigate. When the user click more details, we need to show more details, right? And delay to button is also here. So we are going to create all these things. So the first thing I'm going to do is that we are going to bring in some kind of use state right here. So first of all, we're going to create used. We say used navigate, which coming from navigation. So in React we have that, in React router DOM we have the link, and then we have the navigation, what we call the used navigator. The link basically directs you to the route where when you click it goes. But basically when you are doing API calls, when something is successful, navigate to here. You always use the navigate, right? Which is very good. So if a user is successful with this, when the API calls coming from the back and everything, navigate to this, right? Okay, so we're going to say that navigate, right? So we're going to say that navigate is going to go to use navigate, right? And let's bring this from the React router DOM right here. So this is the first step, and the second step is that we're going to say that const, let's create in some kind of state. We are using use state right here, and then we say that product, right? So product, set product, right? So product and then set product, and then here we are going to say that use state, right? Use state, in React is a use state, right? Use state small. So use state coming in from React, and then we are going to say that we want to bring in the product interface, right? And then what we are going to say that here is kind of array. We don't have anything in here, so this is basically it, right? So this is going to represent the product that we are going to get, and then I'm going to say that const loading. If it is loading, we set everything to true. So we need to go and have a method, right? This fetching the product. So fetch in fetch data from the API, and we are going to say that const, this is going to be a method that fetch in something from the backend. So it's trying to do this. This is not what we want, so let's go and create our own. We don't want the Copilot to do that. For fetch, I'm going to say that this is going to be fetch product, right? Product, let's make sure we have product. So this is kind of fetch product, and then it's going to be async because we are making an API call, and then we trying to make this an arrow function. So whatever we have here, let's make sure that now we have the method that is that fetch product, and then we are going to make sure this is try catch. We put everything into a try catch block so that when there is an error, we catch that. And the first one is that we're going to say const, right? And then we put data. Here is an object, so let's see data is called to await, and then we bring in our API, which is coming from Axios, right? And then see that get product. So get product, and then here is set. So now what we are doing here is very simple. We are making an API call to get all the product from the backend, and then we set that to the state, right? So now this state right here has the data, right? And then when we get that, we set is loading to false, right? Because we are not going to load everything again. And then when there is an error coming in, what we do is that we say that console, right? Console log. Okay, we want to console log any error that will be coming in. So let's use this, and see that error occurs when we are fetching this, and then we set in here to set the loading to false, so something like that. So this is basically giving us, fetching us a data from the backend. Okay, and then the next thing that we want to do is also handle delete, right? So handle delete. So we want to also basically delete something, delete product. So we are going to create a method that also does that. So we are going to say that const handle. So let's use a better name convention from React. Handle handle delete. So let's have this name, and then it's going to go to async like this, and then this method now probably gets in ID, and the ID here is going to be a string because it's going to delete in based on ID, and then we are going to say this, and then we have this. So if we're going to make sure that a certain window pop up, right? If Windows, are you sure you want to delete the product, right? So we see that windows.confirm, and this is JavaScripting, and then confirm now coming from something, and we are going to say that are you sure. So this is why will come with a Windows pop-up. Are you sure you want to delete, right, this product. So are you sure you want to delete this product? So basically like that. Are you sure you want to delete this product? And then if the user say yes, what happens is that we then go ahead and see that we try. Okay, we try and then API call, and then we delete product. We delete the ID, and then we set that product. This is not what we want. So let's see that we try. Let's write our own thing. Try catch, right? So the first thing we want to do is that await. We want to make API calls, and then we delete it, right, based on the ID. And then we're going to see that fetch, right? So we're going to call our product again, fetch product method right here. That is it. And then when we call that one to update everything, it's refresh everything for us, right? So when we delete, automatically we call this one to fetch a new product. So basically when we delete, automatically it will refresh. And this is something we are doing, just a logic. After deleting this, call this method, which is fetching the data. So when you delete, automatically fetch the data again. So now we are done. And what we're going to do is that we are going to use effect, right, to basically do all this thing right now. So what I'm going to do right here is that I'm going to bring use effect in React. And then the use effect basically work without you refreshing the so we say use effect coming in from React, right? So we have this use effect, which is basically going to call this one. So when we load our product, it's basically going to call this one, and then it's going to log in, fetch in those things for us. So let's change this method right here. Let's give this name. This is handle delete method, and then let's make sure that you call this one that, right? Okay, so handle delete, this is it. And then say handle delete. Can't find the name handle delete. Okay, but this is what we are doing here. Okay, we will fix that. So we have this. And one thing that I've prepared is that I have kind of loading, right? So loading spin, that normally spin when we are fetching in the data, right? So now you can see everything is working. So now everything is working. But the only thing is that we need to make sure that this method is the same as it. So delete is not working as we want. So delete should be like this. And then now let's go here. Okay, product list right here. Trying to export this default. So export default. I don't know why this error is coming up. Okay. So one thing that we need is that one of them is doing something. I don't know. It's closing in curly braces, giving us a challenge here, right? But it's cool. So now what we need to do is that we have to make sure that this name is the same as this. But I don't know why it's saying that the name is not the same, right? Because the name is supposed to be the same. Okay, so let's go back like that, like what we used to have. And then okay, so what we don't want this to be like this. Let's first of all see that export. We first of all want to export from here, go top like this. Let's try to export it from here. So we see that export, and let's check this one, right? So this is basically need a closing curly braces or something like that. We don't know what is happening. So we do this, And now you see everything is working. So let's also make sure that we are not using React. So we probably want to clear that out. And now how we import the component is going to change, right? So we go ahead and then we basically want to bring it back again. There is an error coming in saying that this cannot be, it's no JSON component or something like that, which we don't understand, because this is a program, details where we have already exported it here. But why are you getting the error saying that this is not? So let's fix that error and see why it's saying that it's not that. So basically check your VS Code. My VS Code, sometimes I have to restart it when it's normally stand long like this. So now we have everything is working, and then we have import this. So I've restarted my VS Code, and then everything is working. So now let's go to our browser, here, and then you see that. Let's try to see if we fetch, and then no product is showing. And then let's go here and see that Axios, there is an error coming in, network error, right? So we are not fetching a product. So the endpoint that we need to do is that we need to go to Scalar and check if indeed it's that endpoint that we are hitting if we want to get product. So check if we are getting product right here. When we hit like this, it's product. It's product and it's not product. So let's go and check the endpoint that we specify here. Well, okay, but that is it. We need to get this coming in. So API / getting this. Okay, so let's check our Axios / API. Okay, yeah, let's remove this to API, and check if this will solve the issue for us. Let's refresh this. The error is coming, the network Axios name, get request is refused, right? Connect refuse. So /API, check the why we are using here is 271. So this one is wrong. What we have in Scalar, right? So we check the port is wrong. So the Scalar one that we have in here, you can see in Scalar is 7212. So it's not 13. So let's go back here and make sure to change this to 2, right? Okay, so let's change it to 2 so that we have something nice coming in. So now let's go back here, let's refresh and check if the port is going to work. So let's check 72 is also still refused to connect. Why is it refused to connect? So let's change everything to HTTPS. Let's also change this to HTTPS. Okay, and let's try to refresh it again, and still it's giving us an error, right? Okay, so what is running on Scalar is HTTPS localhost 72/API. Okay, let's check this one well and see localhost /API, right? And this is accepting this. Okay, so now this is running on HTTPS. Okay, so the issues might be like our backend too is not running. So let's go and run our backend. So let's make sure to run our backend, make sure that it's running. So we are running our backend right now. So now the application is running. Let's go back to the UI here and let's refresh and see if now it will come. Now you can see it's coming. We have only one product in here, so we have not created the create product right now. So in React we now have this that we created with Scalar. So if we go back to Scalar and create new one, it will show up. But so now let's go ahead and then create the other components here in React. So we are going to create, first of all, now product details, product list is coming. So the next thing that we need to do is create product, because we want to create a product as soon as possible. So for that one too, I have the UI. I'm going to bring the UI, then we create the method in there. So we go in there, we want to create a product here from the front end. We don't want to use Scalar anymore, so we're going to go ahead and replace everything. Let's delete everything from here and then replace it with this. So this is the UI. All the method that we have in there, I just put in there so that we create it. So now what we are going to do right now is that we are also going to bring in the use navigator. So is it a const, right? And then we are going to say navigate, right? So we're going to say that navigate, navigate. So navigate is going to go to use navigator right here, which is coming from router DOM. We just import that one right here, and then we're going to say that we define the form data, right? So we define the form data. Let's bring this. And then what we have is name, price, the category and everything is not part. The price here, and then that is what we have right here. So this is the form data we want to use. And then now let's go and have a method of handle submit, right? So price here, form data is having a price. The price here, let's make sure that it's empty like this too. So now the price is empty, right? All the form data is empty by default, nothing is in. So we need to have handle submit, right? So we say const handle submit as a function that we need, right? So this is what we need. This is what we're going to have when we create a product, right? So first of all, we say that prevent default. We don't want the page to refresh when we create product. So prevent, that default behavior that is going to happen, right? And then we want to put this into a try catch. So we want to put this into a try catch because this is async method right here. So we're going to make an API calls. So we say that our API, and then we are going to say post, right? And then it's going to post to some kind of, what we're going to post is that we're going to slash product, right? We post to this endpoint called product, right? Product. So this is the endpoint we want to post in there. So now when the user, we want to allow the user to create in something. So we say that we make an API call, right? And we say that we post, right? So API, we post, and this time around, we are not just posting. What we are going to do is that in here, we are going to bring in the form data, what we want to post. So in here, the first thing that we need to do is that we do use some spread, operator here. We use the spread, format. And then what we are going to do is that we are going to say price is number, right? And then we have this thing in here. Let's go and terminate this from here. So this is coming from here. Okay. we need to have a closing this coming in. Okay, so basically that is the method that we need to have. So we need to have a method that or a function that's basically going to handle a post for us. So this is the post one, and then we console the error. If everything works, we after creating it, we navigate back to the home page, right? So this is the home page. So this is going to help us to create a product. So let's go to the AI our here and check. So let's go to create, and now you can see this is the let's say new product, and then let's see that testing 2. So this is testing 2, and then what we are going to do is that we say that this is 60. We create. So everything is not working. Yeah, okay, it's working. So now you can see we can go and then create, and then we do something like this, and then we hit create, and then now create is also working. So now we can create, and then we can then also see the list, right? So this is basically making an API calls to the backend. So the next thing that we need to do right here is that we need to go in and have the product details also UI implement. So now when we click on a product, we want to make sure that the product is is going to give you all the details coming in, right? So with that, what we are going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and then bring in the UI, and then we create all the necessary method that we need to create. So this is it. Don't worry about what we have here. We are going to create everything. So in React, we have something we call the React router DOM, which deal with routing and everything. But one thing that it also deal with is what we call the use params, right? Or params, right? So you see it's kind of parameter. We want to get the ID. So let's say const and they say this params is going to have what we call ID. Okay, let's make the ID small. So because if we want to get the product detail, we pass in the what we call the ID, right? So let's go and then import this from React router DOM. So this is the first thing. We are going to also bring in const, and then we are going to say that navigate. Again, we are going to use navigator, and then this is going to be use navigate. So let's import this, and then what we're going to do is that we are going to also creating some kind of state, and then okay, this is good, but this is not what we want. We want to make sure that the information that the product hold or default is not right. So we replaced this. We bring in the use state. Okay, and then we bring in the product interface right here. Okay, so we bring in the product interface right here. So we also set loading to true because we are going to have loading spin. So now the next thing we're also going to do is that we're going to have use effects, right? So use effects coming from React, and what this use effect does is that it's basically going to take in a function of fetch product, right? It's also going to fetch product. So when we pass in the ID, it's need to fetch a product, right? So this is going to be the use effect that we have, and it's fetching a product, right? So this is the use effect. So let's go and create the method that will fetch in the product, and then we have already created that that thing already before. So the same thing, we then go and then import that. The Copilot is even doing it for us. So this is something we have already created before, and then we can also do delete. So handle delete from here, and it's something we have already created in the product list. So we can go and copy the same one and bring it here. Okay, so this is it, and so this is handle delete, the same one. After deleting, we go back to the home page, right? So this is different. Okay, when we delete, we go back to the home page, and I have a loading here, loading spin that I did. Very nice one. I'm going to bring it here. Okay, so let's save this. So basically now this is where we can view the details of a product, right? So let's go ahead and then check. Now you can see everything is working. We can go back to the home page. So in the home, now let's try the delete. Everything is working, right? Everything is working. The delete is working. So we can delete right now. We can view details and then hit here too. We can delete from here. And we can create another product. And then now it's working. So now we can create, delete, right? And then also view the details of it. So the only thing that left is we trying to edit, right? So if you want to edit, it's not going to work right now because we have not implemented that the UI. So let's go to the edit. So the edit, I also have the UI, right? So the edit is also going to have this UI that I prepare. You can, do your own UI. So it's also going to have this UI right here. So this is a simple UI. And then the first method that we need is that it's also going to use the use param and then everything that we did for the view detail. So it's going to get this to basically get the ID. So this extracts the ID from the URL. Right? So this is coming from React Router DOM, and then it's always extract the URL, the ID coming in for us. So the next thing that we need to do is also bring in the use, navigator. So we're going to see that const, and it's something we have already done here, the product details, right? So we can go and bring this one too. So because this product detail also taking the ID and then give us the details of the product. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go to React here, and then we're going to import this coming in, and then the form data, right? So when we go to this one, we used to have this one right here, and it's the same thing we are going to do here on the edit, because the edit in the backend is also update. So the edits normally have something like the same as create. So we're gonna go in then and bring this one, but this time around let's make this one 0. Okay, good. And the next thing is that we set the loading to const. We see that const like this, and then we see that loading. Okay, okay, and then we set the loading to true. Then we have the use effect that is also going to fetch the product, right? So we have use effect that is also going to fetch the product, and it's going to also delete the product like what we have in here. So it's the same as this. So it's like this at edit, we are combining create with the product details, and then we are going to have this kind of product edit. So it's the same as this one. So now we are going to do the same as this one, but the endpoint is, for the Axios endpoint is going to change, right? So let's copy this and then have all this method coming in, and then let's have this, right? And that is it. So we're gonna have only this. So let's, here we are not deleting, we are just editing. So let's remove this, and then we're gonna have this coming in. So here we need a state, right? We need a state coming in from this. So when we want to edit, we want to put this into a state. So let's go and modify this to a state. Okay, and then let's delete one of this loading. Okay, so now we are bringing in the interface that will represent how we want to update our data, right? and then after that we set the loading to false, and then you see fetch is not basically imported. We are going to import that, and fetch set a product. So what we are going to do is that here we are not going to do set product. What the fetch product here is different from the one that we want to do. The only modification we want to do is that here we probably want to set form data instead, right? Because we have form data here, so we are going to use set form data instead of set product, right? So this one we copy from the D2 one. So here we do this. Okay, now that is it. And now let's coming up and say that we have handle submit. So if we want to submit, what that we do, that is the only function we have, and this is the function we need. So the submit is the handle submit, then we call in the put, right? And then we navigate with the ID, and then we do that. So this is basically also going to helping us. I have the loading too, which is kind of a Spring with the UI that I prepared, and this is it. So basically this is also going to help us to edit. So let's go in here. First of all, let's go and create a new product. So we say the new product, and then see that this is new product we have created to test everything here to see if it works, right? So this is it, something like this. Okay, good. And then we go and then say product, and the price that we want to set here is 30, or we can set any price we want, and this is now creating for us. And then let's view this. So this is a new product. Let's change the title, edit, and now we can see that this is update, and now this is working. We can hear and everything is working. So this is how we built a full stack application using MongoDB, ASP.NET Core, and React. It has been a long journey, and at a point I need to bring in some kind of the UI so that we move fast. We cannot do everything, but I'm going to make sure that the code is available on GitHub so that you can use that one as a reference. I mean, some of the function you can improve it, and you can use this format to build your complete web application. And here is CliffTech. We talk about ASP.NET Core, Azure, and then now we are adding React. So thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe and share this content with others so that they can also benefit from this wonderful content. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video.